So have you ever just looked around at your life, at your busy calendar, all your achievements, and had that quiet little thought creep in, is this really it? Well, that feeling, that sense that you're kind of playing a role instead of living your own life, that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're going to talk about how to stop just living on default and actually start designing a life that feels energized, authentic, and truly yours.
Wow. This quote from Ann Smith, it just hits you, right? It perfectly nails that weird feeling. On paper, everything looks great. The calendar's full, you're checking things off the to-do list, but on the inside, it just feels hollow, like you're wearing a costume. And this whole explainer is for anyone who's feeling ready to finally take it off.
So what does this whole misalignment thing actually feel like, day to day? Well, it turns out there are a few really common signals that your inside world and your outside life are just not vibing together.
And I'm not talking about your normal, phew, it's Friday kind of tired. This is a deep down fatigue that a good night's sleep just doesn't seem to fix. It's a sign that your energy is constantly being spent in places that don't really feed your soul. Okay, and here's the big paradox of our hustle and grind culture, right? We're kind of taught that being busy equals being important. But you can have a calendar that is packed to the brim and still feel totally empty inside. And that feeling, it's a huge sign that you're disconnected from what actually lights you up.
And maybe this is the biggest giveaway of all, that nagging feeling that you're just going through the motions. You're being super efficient, you're solving problems, but they don't feel like your problems. It's kind of like you're an expert at following a map that leads to somebody else's house.
Okay, so we've all felt that out of sync thing. So what's the goal here? What does an aligned life even look like or feel like? It's way more than just a cool buzzword. It's a real, tangible way of being.
So at its heart, alignment is just when what you do on the outside matches who you are on the inside. Simple as that. And listen, it's not about creating some perfect, problem-free life. I read this beautiful description that compared it to tuning a guitar. You just keep making these small, patient little tweaks until your life finally starts to sing your song.
And this right here, this highlights a massive shift in how we think about success. Our culture is obsessed with productivity. Doing more, doing it faster. But alignment, it completely changes the game. It's not about how many tasks you cross off your list, it's about how fulfilled you feel at the end of the day. It's the difference between rowing a boat as hard as you can and rowing it hard in the right direction.
So here's the best part. You don't have to quit your job and move to a monastery to find this. We can actually approach this like a designer would, with a simple, step-by-step process that's actually really powerful. All right, step one is all about getting brutally honest with yourself, but not in a judgmental way. It's just about pausing long enough to actually listen, to stop performing for everyone else, and just ask yourself, how does this job, this relationship, this schedule, how does it actually feel to me?
And a really great tool for this is something called a life audit. You just break your life down into these key areas, and you rate your satisfaction. But here's the key. You have to rate it based on your gut feeling, not what you think society says a 10 should look like.
Okay, so once you kind of know where you are right now, you can start to make some space to dream about what could be. This is the fun part. It's about letting yourself brainstorm without any judgment. Just ask yourself, what if there's a different way to do this? What if all the rules I've been following are, optional? And a really cool way to do this is to connect with your future self, the version of you who's already living this awesome aligned life. Get really specific. How does she carry herself? What does she believe is true? Thinking about these things helps you tap into the feeling of that life even before it gets here.
Now, this next step, it totally flips what most of us think we have to do. We usually think we need this perfect, giant plan before we can start. But honestly, clarity comes from taking action, not before it. So this step is all about experimenting with tiny, low-risk changes to see what happens.
Yeah, this quote from Ari just says it all. This is not about making some huge, scary leap. It's about trying a new morning routine for just a week, or setting one small boundary in one conversation. You're not committing for life, you're just gathering a little data on what feels good.
And this last step is what makes it all work, because this isn't a straight line, it's a circle. After you try something small, you just check in with yourself. What did I learn from that? How did it feel? Did it bring me closer to what I want or further away? And then you just adjust your course.
A really huge part of this refinement process is about letting things go. You just can't grab onto what's next if your hands are still full of things that don't belong to you anymore. Think of it like you're pruning a plant so it has space for new growth.
And that can mean letting go of old habits, draining friendships, or beliefs that are holding you back. Now, as exciting as all this sounds, we have to be real for a second. Designing a life that feels good isn't some neat little project with a clear finish line. The journey itself is going to be messy, it's going to be up and down, and that is totally and completely okay.
I promise you, you are absolutely going to hit some of these roadblocks. Fear is going to pop up. You might feel guilty for putting yourself first. You might even wonder, who am I to want something more? The trick is to see these things not as stop signs, but just as part of the scenery on the journey.
And this quote from Cassian Flint, this is really the heart of it all. This isn't a one-time fix. It's a practice. It's a continuous, gentle process of checking in with yourself and choosing to come back home, over and over and over again.
So with all of that, where in the world do you even start? I know it can feel like a lot, but it all comes back to one simple, really powerful idea.
Seriously, let that sink in for a second. This whole thing isn't about fixing something that's broken about you. It's not about playing catch-up to where you think you should be. No, this is about being a conscious, intentional builder of your own life, one choice, one brick at a time.
And that brings us right here to this final question. Forget about the 5-year plan for just a minute. What is one tiny, almost ridiculously small thing you can do today to move just 1 inch closer to a life that actually feels like home? That's it. That's where the real journey begins.